Welcome back, builders, to the Foundry by Forge College. I'm absolutely thrilled to be with you today because, well, we finally reached a major milestone. If you were with us for our last explainer on drafting a coherent narrative, you know we've been super busy fabricating all the individual components of our historical argument. Today is the day we put on our hard hats, fire up the machinery, and really bolt those pieces together. This explainer is your final blueprint for assembling your Capstone project, submitting that detailed timeline or essay on the intellectual lineage of blockchain. Okay, let's dive right into this schematic overview of the machine we're going to build together today. First up, the final assembly. Then, what done looks like. Third, the assembly line. Fourth, our quality assurance checkpoint. And finally, key takeaways.
All right, part one, the final assembly, or as I like to call it, the parts on the workbench.
So I want you to really think of yourself as an inventor right now. Your workbench, it's probably covered in scattered research parts, draft paragraphs, maybe a ton of open tabs and source links. But I want to take a second to acknowledge the absolute mountain of hard work you've already done to get here. Just look at the timeline. You've gone from formulating a thesis to building taxonomies, forging evidence chains, and drafting a coherent narrative. You are definitely not starting from scratch today. Now comes the fun part. We're stepping into the incredibly satisfying process of just snapping all these meticulously crafted pieces together into one fully functioning prototype.
Moving to section 2, what done looks like. This is our blueprint. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that before we actually flip the switch and start the assembly line, we need to know exactly what the finished machine has to do to, pass inspection. Think of these as your absolute minimum hardware requirements. To get this off the ground, your prototype needs at least 10 pre-blockchain innovations traced with precise dates. For at least 5 of those, you need documented evidence chains with complete provenance. And you've got to have explicit connections mapping these innovations directly to Bitcoin, backed up by at least 2 cited sources for each connection. Oh, and stick to a single, consistent citation style. Hit these numbers and you've got yourself a working engine.
Let's actually break down that second requirement for a second, because it is absolutely the most critical formula in this entire build. An evidence chain equals a claim plus a source plus provenance. That formula right there is what creates a truly persuasive historical linkage. Listen, if you just have a claim and a source, it's kind of flimsy, right? But when you add the provenance, actually explaining exactly where that source came from, like say an archival record or a contemporaneous media report, you make your historical argument literally bulletproof.
But hey, beyond the raw numbers and the hard formulas, your prototype also needs a really smooth user experience. You could build the most powerful engine in the world, but if the steering wheel is missing, no one's driving it anywhere. This means your qualitative editorial standards really matter. Reviewers need clarity and cohesion in your narrative flow. You need sharp visual communication, things like timeline anchors and a readable layout so people don't get lost in a sea of dates. And for sure, you need clear provenance notes for any ambiguous claims.
All right, on to section 3. The assembly line. This is our 6-step build process. We've got our parts, we have our blueprint. So it is officially time to hit the assembly line. Here's your exact workflow. Step 1, merge inputs. Basically, bolt your draft right onto your annotated comparison table. Step 2, tighten claims. For every single innovation, write a super tight 2 to 4 sentence evidence chain paragraph. Step 3, explicit links. We're adding the connective tissue to Bitcoin here, and we'll look closer at that in just a second. Step 4, visual polish. Make sure your timeline scales are actually accurate and your headers are clean. Step 5, citation consistency. Just pick one style and stick with it. And finally, step 6, export and test. Whatever you do, do not skip testing your final PDF.
Let's actually zoom in on step 3 for a moment. So the crucial point is this. You absolutely must transform descriptive history into analytic history. Descriptive history is just, well, a list of things that happened, which is kind of boring. Analytic history, on the other hand, explains exactly why it matters by mapping those pre-blockchain innovations directly to specific Bitcoin features. For example, don't just say David Chaum invented blind signatures. You have to explain how that specific cryptographic tool influenced early electronic cash proposals, which then paved the way for modern digital money. These explicit connective sentences, they're the engine driving this entire capstone. And when you finally get to step 6, just keep in mind that exporting your PDF isn't actually the final action. You also need to prepare a brief, 200 to 400 word submission note. Honestly, think of this note as the instruction manual for your reviewer.
It should summarize your thesis, highlight your 5 key evidence chains, and, this is super important, list any known uncertainties or historical gaps you found. Doing that shows you're acting as a responsible, thorough historian.
Which brings us to Section 4, the quality assurance checkpoint, or stress testing the prototype.
So your machine is fully assembled, but just like the rigorous programs here at Forge College, every good build needs a strict quality control check before it ships. Here is your actionable verification checklist. Literally, do not hit submit until you've run through this. First, physically count your distinct innovations. Make sure there are at least 10. Second, inspect those 5 evidence chains to ensure they all have a claim, a source, and provenance. Third, map your connections to Bitcoin to verify they are totally explicit. Fourth, check your readability, like open that PDF on a different screen and make sure the text isn't microscopic. And finally, audit 10 random citations for absolute completeness.
Now, I want to offer a slightly humorous but very, very real warning here. You want to reduce reviewer friction at all costs. Please, don't let missing access dates or broken URLs rust the gears of your submission. Seriously, there's nothing more tragic for a reviewer than trying to verify your brilliant historical claim only to click a fragile URL and get hit with a 404 error. It's the worst! Use stable archive links whenever you possibly can. Keep those gears turning smoothly.
Finally, Section 5, Key Takeaways, aka the launch.
And this brilliantly illustrates that by running through these steps and eliminating reviewer friction, you are integrating all these scaffolds to really demonstrate your true capability as a historical analyst. The ultimate takeaway here is integration over accumulation. Over the past several lessons, you haven't just piled up random trivia and hoarded fun facts. No way. You've integrated them. You have built a fully documented analytic timeline that justifies the placement and influence of every single innovation. Always remember, evidence chains are the fundamental unit of historical argument.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought as we wrap up this module. How will you use these rigorous analytical habits you've just built to evaluate technical claims about consensus and fault tolerance in our next module, Foundations of Distributed Systems? Because the evidentiary posture you've practiced here, it's exactly what you'll need to dissect modern blockchain architectures. You've got the tools, now it's time to actually use them. To continue exploring this incredible curriculum and other deep dive Web3 topics, make sure to visit forge.college. I literally can't wait to see the amazing capstones you all built. Happy forging, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.